get into Thursday Night Football. All right, so we have the 49ers going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. San Francisco favored by 3 at FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Action Network pod. The total is 43.5. Kenneth Walker, the third, is off the injury report for Seattle. Looks like Purdy is good to go for San Fran, but no Debo, I guess, is the big news for the 49ers. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, credit to, I was busy trying to track down, I guess I'll give a plug here. Go to the Action Network app or Action Network .com and listen to Big Bets on Campus. I was all afternoon just tracking down bowl opt-outs, and it's just a nonstop exercise. So credit to anyone who grabbed a 3.5 once like Walker was removed and Debo wasn't going to go. I think that's Seattle plus 3.5 is the right side. We've been fading Seattle a lot recently, talked about kind of how their defense is falling apart and some other factors of why they were a bit overvalued. I know you had Carolina last week as one of your best bets. But I think that this is probably the bottom of the market on Seattle. And that's assuming that Brock Purdy, there is a drop-off between Jimmy G and Brock Purdy, which I think you still have to assume right now. Jimmy G, if you look at his numbers over the past 5 or 6 seasons compared to his backups, whenever like CJ Beathard was in there, Nick Mullins, he was significantly better overall. So a lot of people are like, it's just a Shanahan offense. You can plug in anybody. But it was always better with Jimmy G. This is still Mr. Irrelevant rookie. He's only had one start. Was in a favorable game state against a Bucs secondary that basically all went down with injury or were out with injury. And, and he got to face Miami the week before, which I'm not a fan of their secondary as well. So, he's been in favorable states at home. So we'll see. It's only been 1+ game, one start. We've seen this a lot with backup quarterbacks before. They look great for a start or two. You kind of get a book on them. And it's, this is a short week on the road in one of the best atmospheres in the NFL. This is basically, this is Seattle Super Bowl. They need to win this game. So I still have to assume that Purdy, there's a big drop off to Purdy, and maybe there won't be. It could end up that he's really good, but you still can't assume that just based on the sample size. The one thing that worries me is just like how many times are the 49ers going to run the ball? 5 teams have run the ball 40 plus times against the Seahawks this season with a lot of success. That includes the 49ers in the first meeting, which they dominated, and Seattle only scored on, I think, a blocked punt for a touchdown. And, the Panthers did the same thing last week, like ran it 40 plus times, and Seattle's run defense is just a shell right now. So that would be the one thing that scares me. Missing the 3.5, which is what I would have bet if I could have got flat 3.5. I think I might end up teasing the Seahawks, get a little protection, maybe tease them up from 3 to 9. Because I like a couple teaser pieces, which we'll talk about in the teaser section. But I do think this is probably the right spot to buy the Seahawks if this gets to 3.5 minus 115 even. At 3, it's a little dicier, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, initially I looked at this and I said, yeah, Seattle's the right side, especially at more than a field goal. But I think you kind of hit on it. This run defense is a problem. San Francisco, we know that's what they're going to do with Purdy being the quarterback, with McCaffrey, coming on strong here. Even, Jordan Mason's playing well. They still have a defense. Carolina with Sam Darnold, that's AKA, no real threat of the pass at all, which is probably it's comparable to Purdy and Brandon Ayuk and Kittle. Probably San Francisco probably still more threatening. They lined up and ran it 46 times for 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it could have been worse because they threw it 4 times in a row at the goal line for some strange reason. So you're talking about it. You could have had like close to 230 yards, 3 touchdowns given up on the ground for the Seattle defense. And they just had what did they play? 72 plays 4 days ago. And then I was kind of thinking about, remember when we had the debate about Tampa Bay, Seattle on a neutral field, and you were right about the Bucs. Well, Tampa Bay was favored in that one, but I think it was 3.5. And San Francisco was favored by 3 and a half over the Bucks last week, and they blew them out. So it's like now 3.5 for the Seahawks. I know they're at home, but I think this one might get away. Like San Francisco is just rolling, so I it's to stay away from me because I don't want to weigh points with Brock Purdy, obviously. But I really do worry about this Seattle run defense against this kind of team, that wants to run, can run, and can back it up with defense to where the game's not really going to get away from them. So yeah, it's a stay away from me.
49ers defense, by the way, balling out, allowed 64 points over the past 6 games, 6 straight opponents to 17 or fewer. The only teams that have done that over the past decade, 2013 Chiefs, 2019 Patriots, and 2017 Patriots. That's it. But I mean, the one thing I will say, San Francisco's played a really easy schedule overall. So I mean, maybe this is like the top of the market on them. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, look, New Orleans ran the ball 48 times against Seattle. We saw what Josh Jacobs did just a few weeks ago. I think the Raiders put up almost 600 yards of offense. It's like a college football game. So
I mean, the Panthers might be the best example. I mean, a lot of people looked at me like I was nuts when I was taking the Panthers, and they don't even have to threaten to throw. Like the Panthers ran the ball 46 times for 222 yards. Like what? That is pitiful. So yeah, it's like one of those things where it's such a short week that like what can we really bank on changing? I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, maybe if they had a whole week and you make some changes and this and that and guys get healthy, but it's like, what is really going to change in these 4 days that's any different from them just getting ran through again?
I mean, like, you got to hope that what happens in these, like, I mean, Purdy can easily make some mistakes here. I mean, last week he made a bad one of the worst defensive holding calls. Not that it would have changed the outcome of the game that I've ever seen in my life, overturned an interception. But you got to hope, like, in these home hype spots, a lot of times what you'll see is like the run defense is juiced early. And
they were at home against the Panthers, though.
Well, yeah, but that's not like this is like off of a loss, the 49ers Thursday night. And I'm not saying it can last through the whole game, but like early on, like you just have guys that are juiced up, adrenaline up, and you just have a linebacker, a defense like that just make a couple plays behind the line of scrimmage, break through and blow up a couple plays. That's what Seattle needs to do here, and then they need to get a lead. So yeah, it's going to be tough because if they get behind, then they're in trouble because then San Francisco can just run it 45 times. So I think that this game will be decided early on. Defense has to come up and play up early on the first couple of drives, and then they got to get a lead and then Purdy could make a mistake or two. That's the path for Seattle. Otherwise, it's just going to be San Francisco running downhill with the lead and bleeding this thing out, and then that tired defense that you mentioned is just going to tire more and more.
Yeah, like this. To me, this is a prop game where you find some way maybe to attack that run. Maybe you can get a Jordan Mason over or something like that. But yeah, I don't feel great about Seattle. The under. I mean, the under actually might be a little more interesting because if you do think Seattle stays within 3 points, is Seattle scoring 24 on this Niner defense? Probably not, right? So you're probably talking about. As you mentioned, Purdy making some mistakes and allowing Seattle to stay in it. So maybe I probably feel a little better about the under, but it's a stay away from me either way. Kind of like
I would lean under as well. Shanahan as a favorite also isn't great because this isn't a big favorite, but usually like against an inferior opponent, he'll play conservative, and that's why they struggle to cover bigger numbers. So like instead of going for it on 4th and 1, they'll kick a field goal at this 16. And then the 49ers obviously are really slow, and you expect that they'll have a heavy run script here, and their defense is playing really well. And it's like a late season divisional rematch, outdoors, prime time Thursday night. It all lines up to the under. If you were going to play the total, I would look at the under as well.